Hey guys, welcome back to r/idoworkherelady, where the owner of a restaurant gets kicked out of his own business for looking too poor. Let's dive right into the video. This one is titled Malicious Compliance in the Army. When I was a young lad, I spent a few wild years serving in the British Army, working in the comms unit. Our tight-knit crew was full of real characters, the kind of blokes and birds who worked hard and played even harder. One year I volunteered for an extended deployment to some blisteringly hot desert outpost. Deployments for us usually lasted 6 months, but they needed some experienced folks to stay on and train the new units rotating in, so I figured why not. The extra dough was a nice perk too. I got assigned to support this logistics HQ way out in the boonies. It was a cakewalk compared to the stuffy main base. Our little detachment was just 6 of us with yours truly as the NCOIC. Being so isolated, they could only send us folks who could handle the independence and think on their feet. Which suited me just fine. I got all our units troublemakers, but they were a solid crew. In no time flat, we had that place whipped into shape. Built ourselves a nice little oasis, complete with a patio, rock garden, even a gym and shower setup. We struck a deal with the local contractors to hook us up with some brews in exchange for vehicle maintenance. The beauty of it was that being a comms crew meant our area was restricted access, no brass to breathe down our necks. Well, the cushy time could not last forever. The HQ kept rotating in new officers and senior NCOs like a revolving door. They would do the bare minimum to snag their medal and then bounce out. Pain in the rear, but we were used to it, just a bit of extra admin to get the new guys set up. That is, until they brought in this newly minted quartermaster, a right proper knob. And this is one of the most British stories I've read in a while. Anyway, from that day on, he had it out for us. He couldn't stand that we had our little slice of paradise and he couldn't just march in and flex. I would catch him pacing outside our fence, probably seething that he was stuck on the outside looking in. Now, I'd been there nigh on 6 months at this point and I was thoroughly out of F's to give. This tosser hated having to go through me, a lowly corporal, to get anything done. And it chapped his arse something fierce that we fell outside his little kingdom. The tipping point was when he found out that we were having a barbecue, had even invited some of his blokes to join in on the festivities. He completely lost the plot, sent his little minions to shut us down. I told them to jog on, back where they came from. Apparently the next day he was frothing at the mouth, ready to bring the hammer down on us. His grand scheme was to confiscate our welfare package, bit of a kit they had loaned us on the sly, as a thank you for greasing the wheels. The cheeky bastard calls me in and proceeds to give me this spiel. Corporal, seems there's been an administrative error. My lord should have never issued you that gear, and I'm here to correct that oversight. I played it cool. No worries, sir. Happy to sort out whatever paperwork you need to square this way. His smug grin made me want to reach across the desk and throttle him. You misunderstand. There'll be no paperwork because you lot won't be seeing that equipment again, full stop. And I'll be going over your outfits, every request with a fine-tooth comb. If there's so much as a single T uncrossed, it's getting binned. You may be outside my chain of command, but I'll make it my mission to bring you to heel. Well, and here is where the malicious compliance of me kicks in. I meet his steely gaze with a placid smile. Understood, sir. Just to be clear, you're completely satisfied with the actual comms support we provide, right? This is purely a matter of proper documentation, right? He narrowed his eyes suspiciously, but could not resist the opportunity to twist the knife even further. I have no substantive complaints with your technical work, but yes, I expect every request to be letter perfect and I'll accept nothing less. Absolutely, sir. I appreciate your commitment to running a tight ship, administratively speaking. We will have that package returned post-haste. So I bring back the welfare gear to his domain, his lackeys falling all over themselves to apologize. I tell them no worries. See, what that self-important windbag failed to realize was all the extra infrastructure we had set up for the old quartermaster, field phones in the barracks so his lads could call home, extra bandwidth giving them a taste of that sweet uncensored internet, all of it off the books out of the goodness of our hearts. And well, two can play the pedantry game. I moseyed on back to my realm and set about methodically shutting down every unsanctioned spigot we had opened up. Every line, every terminal, every byte of data not explicitly authorized by the good book. It didn't take long for the first shell-shocked private to come knocking, bewildered how he got cut off mid-call. Then a few more just trying to suss out why the tap had suddenly run dry. I put on my best sympathetic face and sent them round to their master, forms in hand, to beg for their privileges back. Even had one of his own NCOs sniffing around, the savvy sort who had picked up on the new regime's folly. I laid it out plain, all the extras, the creature comforts, the little quality of life hacks we had put in place, all of it null and void until they jumped through the proper administrative hoops. She just shook her head ruefully and trod off to deliver the bad news. The coup de grace was when their chief officer, this grizzled old pro who had humped his way up through the ranks, came around with a thunderous scowl. But his ire was not aimed my way. Once I gave him the lay of the land, he just heaved a knowing sigh and stomped off to set things right. An hour later, that smarmy bastard was darkening my doorway again, only this time he came with his hat in his hand, almost sheepish with the old warhorse glaring daggers over his shoulder. Corporal, I may have been a bit overzealous in my attempts to normalize our procedures. Your documentation is all in order, so we are returning your equipment effective immediately. I smothered the urge to crow in triumph, instead offering him a gracious nod. Very kind of you, sir. I know we're all on the same side here. Then to my lads, I gave the signal. Sounds like we are back in business, gents. As quickly as they'd been severed, the line slid back up and data came pouring through. The quartermaster looked about ready to choke on his own tongue, but he knew he was beat. Gave me a perfunctory salute and fled with his tail between his legs. That was the last I heard from him for the rest of my deployment. Our oasis remained unmolested, the lads got their precious creature comforts back and equilibrium was restored. Never underestimate the power of a stubborn enlisted man with nothing to lose and time to kill. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you enjoy these military malicious compliance stories, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave some star emojis in the comments if you want to support me. Thank you so much, and the next one is the title story, which is titled "Entitled Waiter Kicks Me Out of My Own Restaurant for Looking Too Poor." I consider myself a very lucky man. That is not to say that I blame all my success on luck. I've put in quite a lot of work to fulfill lifelong dreams that I had. I just subscribe to the idea that you can get away with plenty with a little bit of good luck or be shot down by a bit of the bad variety. Where I needed it in my work, luck always fell on my side of the court. Certainly my marriage had to have luck involved because my wife is way out of my league. I just returned back home to the city that I love after months across the country, working on building up another location of my business. I had only just arrived in time for Valentine's Day and decided that I would take my wife out to a nice dinner at our favorite restaurant. We wanted to see how it had held up while we had been missing. They know us pretty well, so the reservations are easy to make even though the restaurant is sure to be utterly packed that night. We show up and where we end up seated is plenty of indication of luck for either me and my waiter. The real question is, good or bad luck? You guys can tell me after hearing me out. Considering we were right in the middle of moving back home, it should not be a surprise that we were currently in the wonderful phase of moving where organization fell to the wayside as all the boxes stacked up. My wife and I's favorite restaurant is not one with a strict dress code, but there are some expectations for customers. I cannot deny the joy I get from taking a beautiful woman out to dinner in a formal suit while she dresses like she's expecting a red carpet. However, the dinner is the important part, and so when we struggled to find my suit jackets, we agreed not to dress up. I threw on some golf shorts and a polo, style not brand in this case shirt. My wife wore dress pants and a nice blouse. She calls it the Wednesday night church clothes. I'm not one to be anxious about my clothes often. I definitely recognize that we are underdressed for Valentine's Day at a restaurant this fancy. The host, however, is just happy to see a regular and expressing her wishes that our new location was blooming. We were seated and everything pointed to the date turning out incredible. And then the waiter came to greet us. Our waiter's name was Kyle, and he immediately made a first impression. Now, I've seen plenty of waiters who are having a bad day, and from my time being a waiter myself when I was younger, I know it can be hard to keep a smile plastered to my face. Still, a sneer is a little worse than simply not smiling. I noted it merely as something I could bring to the attention of the manager and see if it was consistent behavior. We did not need to open our menu before ordering a bottle of wine for the table. A look of confusion crossed his face, which again I ignored and focused on my wife, who also noticed but deferred to me as to whether we would do anything about it. When Kyle comes back with the wine, my wife and I are just about ready to order. Kyle brings us 2 cups with the wine already in it. "Excuse me," I said. "We ordered a bottle, not just 2 cups." To which Kyle scoffed and vanished before I could get another word out. He came back and set the uncorked bottle of wine on the table with an exasperated sigh. "There, now, have you spent enough of your money to be sure you cannot tip?" I'm honestly more confused than anything as I furrow my brows at Kyle. I'll have you know that I'm a regular at this restaurant. I'm more than capable of knowing what I can and cannot spend. You, a regular? He lifted his lip, clearly out of disgust, as he looked at me and my wife up and down. Sir, I would prefer it if you don't blatantly lie to me. I have half a mind to get you escorted out. Because you clearly took a wrong turn at the door. People who show up to a restaurant like this on Valentine's Day looking like they belong in a lawn chair outside of an RV only hurt our appearance. Also, our waiters simply don't make livable money without proper tips. I am well aware of exactly what waiters need, and I can assure you I properly tip any waiter that does not insult me and my wife while we are out here for dinner. So you're not gonna tip? I bet you cannot even pay the bill before it. Planning on dine and dashing, huh? Kyle snatched a wine bottle. If you're not gone by the time I get the manager, she will make sure security escorts you out. Kyle walked off and I turned to my wife, who just raised her eyebrows at me in question. I settle in my chair and take a couple sips of my wine. Might as well take some of the edge off before having to further deal with Kyle. My wife just shakes her head. I don't know why though, she started drinking hers as well. Kyle is properly livid as he storms back through the restaurant with the manager in tow by a death grip on her arm. Panic is in the manager's eyes as recognition dawns. I simply shake my head. I'll admit I was a bit facetious in the early part of this story merely because I wanted you all to understand that Kyle's behavior was horrible if it was directed at any customer. I could tell from the manager's flustered countenance that she recognized that the fallout would be far worse when that customer that is getting threatened for absolutely no reason happens to be the owner of the restaurant. I'm not just a regular at this restaurant, I own it. I was across the country opening a location with my name on it in NYC, and I was set to come back a few days after Valentine's Day, but it seems that I'll be enacting some responsibility as owner sooner than that. Still, I act the part and my manager lets me. Of course, freeloaders like you never know when to leave. Kyle shoved the manager in front of him. Ma'am, these customers were talking about having a nice meal before ditching the ticket. No wonder considering their trashy outfits. Tell them that they will have to leave. The manager stammered that she didn't see what was wrong with our outfits. They were not full suit jackets, but there's no official dress code. To which Kyle started to list all the issues with our clothing. The lack of brand-name clothing. I much prefer brands that focus on real quality instead of getting their price from the logo on the chest, and the presence of golf shorts and a ratty blues in our outfits. He claimed that we would not be caught dead in these clothes if we truly made any sort of money. I stand and cross my arms in front of Kyle to punctuate this rant. I'm not leaving this restaurant because of some kid who cannot see far enough past his own ego to truly serve anyone. I'm not gonna serve just anyone. There's a reason I worked hard and got here instead of some normal trashy diner. I would never lower myself to serve someone I would hate to see in the same city block. He then turned to the manager and claimed that I had lied to him about being a regular. He said that this being his first week on the job, he couldn't deny it, but he knew the manager would for him. She looked like a deer in the headlights as he again turned the spotlight on her. I raise a hand to stop the manager I interviewed to promote. Don't worry, I'll handle this. I turned to Kyle. I actually did lie to you, Kyle. I'm not simply a regular here. Though your manager there does recognize me and would have cuffed you over the ear if you had consulted her before starting your tirade towards me. I'll assume she had nothing to do with this and that you are quite the charmer in interviews, because I sincerely hope that one of the people I left in charge of my restaurant while I was gone would not hire someone as tactlessly rude as you without some deception on your side. I'm the owner here, and if either of us here are getting escorted out, it is you. Kyle had tried to interrupt me at various points, but I bulldozed over him. He finally stopped trying to speak and just gasped when I said, my restaurant. He tried to fight it for a bit longer. He spouted nonsense about how the owner would never lower himself to having a normal reservation for a normal table for her date. When he turned to the manager for backup though, she was pale as a sheet. She simply confirmed my story, and I then asked Kyle to grab his possessions and leave. Not only was he fired, but I was banning him from my restaurant, to which he had the most mind-boggling reply maybe I've ever experienced. Surely you must understand what a mistake that is, OP. The idiot thought he was on a first-name basis with me because my name is above the door. This would show you that I am far and away the most devoted waiter in this restaurant. My work is more than just taking care of customers, but also the image of the entire restaurant. Obviously, it's okay for you to wear whatever you want when you build the place yourself, but we wouldn't want just anyone to be able to come through the doors and damage our reputation with poor dress code. It also protects your workers to make sure that people are able to tip when they come to... Stop, just stop, I say, and he again flounders like a goldfish right before you send it down the toilet. I will protect my restaurant by making sure that anyone who has the desire and the means can sit down and have a wonderful dining experience here. I don't care if they show up in mud-crusted overalls and no shirt. I'll protect my restaurant by taking out any workers that fit it in their job description to verbally attack my customers and berate them for what they chose to wear with no understanding of what they are doing. Now, will you leave or will I have to call the police? He begged for his job back to protect him from all the grief he was sure to get from his mother. He griped plenty in the time it took for the cops to respond to the non-emergency call, but I was fine with it because I simply had my manager bring us our bottle of wine so we could sit and relax while he shamelessly groveled at our table. Of course, I also gave everyone in that section a free appetizer and choice of a bottle of wine. I was feeling generous after the success of my new location, and I didn't want this to be their last visit. The cops arrived while Kyle was impressively still trying to argue for him being an asset to my team. Once they threatened to arrest him for trespassing if he didn't follow them, he moved quickly enough. I had a nice meal and was back at work to help my managers pick a new waiter to fill Kyle's spot a few days later. And yeah, Ripestars, if you still enjoy these I don't work here lady stories, please let me know in the comments, because in my opinion, this is a subreddit that is not so commonly read anymore here on YouTube. And I still kind of enjoy it, but I'm not sure if you like these stories as well. The next one is a malicious compliance story. So I was a sarcastic and easily annoyed guy in my 20s, and this often did not help me get along with older or corporate types. I was working at a certain pumpkin-colored big box home improvement store one spring in the flooring department. And Ripestars, by the way, if you know what kind of store that is, aka that OP is talking about, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, it was just starting to get warm out and the store did not have much AC. So I was looking forward to a magical date where certain employees were allowed to switch their pants for shorts. The problem is that we had a new department manager, I will call him Dick, who was aggressively chasing a promotion to assistant manager and then store manager. He thought he could accomplish that by being a super by the book hard ass and being relentlessly metrics focused. This translated into a manager who was a know-it-all micromanaging Dick. Anyway, I am scheduled to open at 5 AM one day on the fabled day of color bottom wear, and I walk in all light and airy and bare-legged. Dick, who was overnight manager the previous night, saw me and threw a fit. "Why are you out of uniform?" he asked. "I am not. I can wear shorts starting today," I proclaimed. "Not your position in your department. Who told you that you could?" he retorted. "The employee handbook and SOP? I can show you if you don't believe me," I offered. "I know the SOP and your department doesn't get to wear shorts. That's only garden. Go home and change right now," he demanded, face getting redder from my defiance. "Okay, Dick, if that's how you want to play it, I'll be back in an hour." I sighed. "Maybe the loss of an hour of pay will teach you something." So I know better. The reason I know better is because I'm one of the weirdos who actually read the entire standard operating procedure document, the employee handbook, which is actually just a subsection of the SOP, and I really hate being wrong, so I checked the SOP before doing anything different day to day. In my store, the SOP was like invoking God. If the SOP said so, that won every single argument. So anyway, I go home, change into pants, but bring my shorts back to work with me. By now, Dick's shift is over, and I asked the new morning manager on duty, Darren, to meet with me. "Why? What's up?" "Oh, it's just an SOP issue." "Oh, okay. Give me like 10 minutes, yeah?" So I swung by my desk and printed out several things. Number 1, my latest pay stub that included my official job title and department number. Number 2, the company directory that listed the department names and their associated numbers. Number 3, the SOP that dealt with when and which departments and employees can wear shorts. Number 4, the annual email from the regional VP confirming which departments could wear shorts starting when, which also included the line, "And this letter is to be posted at the time clock between the dates of XXYZ. Number 5, the SOP detailing the company transportation and mileage reimbursement policy. Number 6, a Google Maps route that mirrored the route I take to and from work with the total mileage highlighted. So I met with Darren and explained what happened and handed him each page in turn as they became relevant. At the end, we agreed that I was right on every single account and asked me what I wanted. Number 1, I want the time. That I was turned away before I could clock in, so I want to be paid starting at 5 AM. Feel free to check the CCTV if you want to confirm when I arrived. Number 2, I want the mileage because Dick sent me on an essentially company errand with my own vehicle through no fault of my own. Number 3, I want this letter posted at the clock like it says it's supposed to be. And number 4, I want you to talk to Dick about this because I told him this was the SOP before he sent me home. Number 5, I'm changing back into my shorts. All of that sounds more than fair. Get the paperwork for the clock adjustment and mileage to me today and I'll sign it. The letter mysteriously went missing from the time clock the next day, but I replaced it every day until I happened to see Dick angrily snatch it off the board and throw it away. I reported it as well and the letter stopped going missing. He didn't talk to me much and I was transferred to another department a month later, so all in all win-win I think. And yeah, Ripe Stars, for me it is just satisfying to see employees get revenge on their entitled bosses that always think they are in the right. If you have ever gotten revenge on your boss or manager, please let me know about it in the comments because I would love to hear your story. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. It was January 2022, a new wave of the pandemic hit and it devastated the workforce in the major cities here. On average, about half the workforce for any industry was homesick for about a week at the same time. Shelves in supermarkets were not stocked because there were not enough workers to keep them full. The number of bus routes were cut in half, the list goes on. At my retail store, all but 2 of us were sick. With 2 people on staff, we could not get to everything, so we had to decide what part of the job we would neglect. Most of our revenue is from online sales, so we decided to close the store and focus on dispatching online orders. We still had to answer phone calls and emails though, so we were very stressed. This was only happening in the major cities, of course. More rural locations dodged the major disruptions. And then one day I got a call from a customer. He placed an online order the day prior, paid for express post but noticed it had not been sent. He called and asked why it hadn't been sent yet. I looked on his account and saw that he lived in a rural town hours away. This was the conversation. Customer: "Hi, I placed an order yesterday with the express post. Why hasn't it been sent yet?" Me: "Very sorry, there's only 2 of us on staff because of the pandemic and we are doing the best we can to keep up with the online orders." Customer: "But I paid for express." Yes, and as I explained, there's only 2 of us on staff and we have had to close the store and there's a lot of orders to pack and we pack them from oldest to newest. We're trying our best. Customer: "Well, your best is not good enough. I paid for express. It should have been sent out by now." So my best was not good enough? What an absolute piece of work. At this point I had dealt with enough stress, so I let him have it. Me: paying for express does not mean that we pack the order faster. It means that once the courier has it, they deliver it to you faster. That extra money you spend doesn't go to me or this company, it goes to the courier. There are orders older than yours and they have priority. They have waited longer than you and it will be packed first. Customer: "I don't care, you need to ship it today." Me: "I cannot promise that. Do you have any idea what the pandemic has done to the workforce here?" Customer: "No, and I don't care. If you don't ship my order today, I promise I'll never shop with you again." I genuinely laughed out loud at that. Me: "I literally couldn't care less. It's no skin off my nose." At that point, I hung up. For the entree of my revenge, I purposely skipped his order, even though I caught up to it. It got sent the next day. The main course though, that was tasty. So what I did was, I blocked his account so he couldn't shop with us ever again. He promised he wouldn't, so I wanted to make sure that he didn't break his promise. He tried to though, and he made another account. I recognized the name and confirmed it was him through the shipping address. I cancelled the order and processed a refund. For revenge's dessert, I did something truly petty. When you process a refund, you reverse the payment made by the debit card. You can put a note in it when you do so the customer knows why that money is reappearing in their bank. The note I put was, "To help you keep your promise." And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripestories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.